in this house, the most dire, horrible events took place.
You are not content with the stories. Slice lives come. Be my victim.
Through watching scenes of violence, through watching scenes of transgression, through watching scenes of horror. There's an enormous amount of sort of abattoiral excess.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Hello, 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 and welcome to the Jolly Horror Show, where we're not going to do that impression anymore. Let's pretend I never started that. But I'm just aware there's some very intriguing counter-streaming with some wonderful people who have been guests on this channel. However, I really wish I hadn't started with that. However, you have no need to go to the counter stream. You have got us right here for episode 103 of Double Feature Horror Show. I hope you are having a fantastic week and can forgive subpar impressions of neuroscientists or neuroscience researchers. How are you all, chat? Did you find it easy to get your hands on copies of Alfred Hitchcock Presents? Not the easiest to find, always. You know, it's on YouTube, but also it just so happens to be, well, I wouldn't know this myself, but I gather some clever chap on Odyssey, some kind of TV addict has just got the whole thing up on a channel for you to enjoy. Something, you know, long out of public interest. So it's happy to be just up there for you to watch in very easily categorized playlists. How handy is that? Let's hope that stays up there. Now, I'm not doing this thing alone. We, as well as diving back into early horror anthologies, we're covering a bit of a long-awaited topic, the old German cinema rating system. I know that people have been desperate for that. Everyone has been, well, quite a few of you have, look, there's got to be at least one person here who wants to hear about German film classification, right? Right? I saved this topic for you, TCG.
I'm all I can say is that I'm very open-minded, except when it comes to the Germans.
Jawohl, mein Führer.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, last time we delved back into classic TV anthology, we went with Murgoot for a guest who knows a fair bit about the Twilight Zone, and I thought, let's bring you back on for Alfred Hitchcock Presents. How are you doing, Murgoot?
Very good. Thank you for having me back. Appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. I thought we had such a good time doing Twilight Zone. I thought, yes, let's have you back. And if you don't mind, I think we do have quite a few TV anthologies in the running, so you may be much requested as we go on. You
Fair.
actually said, oh, sorry, go ahead, Murgoot.
I just said fair.
Yeah, works out well for me. And TCG, how are you doing, sir?
I am very well, thank you. Good evening, chat. How the devil are you this evening? I can see some very familiar faces in the crowd.
Yeah, always good. And lots of the channel members, which is always nice to see. I hope you're fine, folks. I hope you're doing well. Well, we got a fair bit to cover, so I think, shall we do our professional YouTube thing? Shall we get a little bit of shilling out there and then dive into the topic? How about it? Hello, Gatsby.
Gatsby speaks for me.
That was the most perfect timing he's ever had.
Yeah.
Oh, bless. Murgoot, anything you'd like to to point people towards before we move on to the topic?
My Twitter is @Murgoot, and I do science posting and weird stuff. I discovered the Weekly World News Twitter site, so I've been reposting them and found a couple kaiju sites, and I've been paying attention to geopolitics, the Council on Foreign Conflict, or Future Conflict, I should say, and really good bunch of guys if you want to know about geopolitics. Other than that, TCG, go shill.
Do you know what? I haven't actually got anything to shill at the moment. I've been a bit under the weather lately, so I've not really been up to much. And the project that I was working on, I have bailed because I have lost the enthusiasm for it. But what I have done in place is I put a community post up in last week, where I got some lovely recommendations from the viewers. So rest assured, I will be working through those recommendations, and when that list dries up, I will come back to you for more. But I will say, Horrorshow, I'm a little bit disappointed you didn't give me lyrics to try and recall. But don't worry, I have you covered, because given tonight's topic, I thought this was quite relevant. But so yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I sit in silence in candlelit environments, sipping wild Irish while getting violent, homicidal visions when I'm spitting like this. But really, I'm just fulfilling my wish of killing rhymes, which is really childish and silly. But I really
like this. You're
I'm
giving
giving nightmares
to Billie Eilish.
I'm Diddy's side bitch.
Wait, what the?
Oh, I'm still East Side.
If that is throwing people off, well, you should know he always drops some rap lyrics at this point. This is from a very interesting song called Alfred's Theme by Eminem, which takes the theme tune, which you will now be very familiar with, of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and does a jaunty little rap on it with many lyrics that I will not repeat on this family-friendly stream. But
Absolutely not.
I think it's one of the best he's done in ages.
Do you know what? It is right up there. It absolutely is.
He's not he's not like pushing for the full speed like he did on Godzilla, but he's just dropping classic pun after pun after pun. It's glorious. It's really glorious, and it's such an unusual thing to set the beat to. Yeah, I mean the reason I did realize, oh gosh, I haven't got a rap lyric in mind. But I have not been with it as I told the panel before we started, folks, my woes. I want F's in the chat, lads, because I recorded for 2 hours today and then realised the mic wasn't plugged in. I boomered so hard that I have now got a guest spot on Lotus Eaters. It's that bad.
At least it wasn't 40 minutes into a live stream. Sorry.
Classic boomers. So, F's in the chat for me and my sanity. I looked and I noticed the light wasn't on the mic, and I just stopped mid-sentence, turned everything off, walked away.
Like I said backstage, that was brutal learning about that.
Oh,
I mean, the worst that's happened to me, to be fair, is I've been recording and realised that it's picking up the microphone on the PC rather than the mic that I'm using right now.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah,
That's
even then, like
savage.
2 hours.
2 hours, folks. I was going over the BBFC history material for you, re-recording it in a funky, fresh style. Straight out of the Funky Bunch. That's what I was up to, and all for naught. So will I get onto it again? Maybe. I need to emotionally recover from it. The absolute state of me, honestly. Gosh.
Yeah.
Right, but from massive F's to FS car,
Oh, what a segue.
Yeah, for fusk's sake. Let's get
Way.
on to the topic. Yeah. Oh, all right. I know, folks. I know. Let's see how quick I can do this, because I'm torn on this, because you can go really, really deep in. But I thought we'd just do a cursory look at German film classification. There are 10 people in that right now. I'm watching that number. You are not allowed to leave because we're talking about film certification in Germany. Okay? I'm watching you, folks. No slipping out the back of class to go and have a smoke now. All right? Okay.
Yes, miss.
Good. Right. So what we have here is just a quick selection. I might have to take, maybe if I take this off like this, that's easier. I think we can work with this. All right. So if you have been wondering about, das wird doch so schwer, okay? Das hier spezialisiert genug, sonst... No, okay, I'm going to have to stop. We'll do it in English, all right? There'll be plenty of German in here. You can enjoy it, you know. Although, sadly, I was unable to find a copy of The Dark Knight with a German title. I do think they just released it as The Dark Knight and not Der Dunkle Ritter, which is a bit disappointing. We got some fun German titles here, though, so we can enjoy that. So part of the difficulty in talking about the German film classification system is which one do you use? Because as you can guess, Germany's organisation has been a bit complex over the years. No less than after 1945, when the country, that was a bit network of me, wasn't it? When the country was split up and Germany basically had 4 different film classification schemes going on. We will ignore the British, we will ignore the French, and we'll focus merely on the American system, because that is the one that basically won out. East Germany was obviously using a direct state control system, whereas the American influence / controlled, yes, Gatsby, Bundesrepublik Deutschlands used a Hays Code style system. So if you're unaware of the Hays Code, that is effectively a discomfort with using direct state control on the film industry, because that would be censorship, and we are liberal democracies, folks. We don't censor. Heck no. So what they instead do is something equivalent to the Hays Code, which is where a bunch of stakeholders within the film industry get together and agree to stick to a voluntary code of standards, which they will not breach, because if they do, then the state will have to get involved. So we'll just stick to the code and everything will be fine. How well do you think that worked, folks?
I imagine it went down like a lead balloon.
Surprise cameo from Murgoot there? Was that a grin of sort of joy, of enjoyment at the mentioning of the Hays Code, a sense of certain pride?
More Schadenfreude.
Yep. Well, you know, we don't operate a system that's all that different here. As you all know, the BBFC is a similar thing, although it's got a bit more state involvement here. But it's effectively voluntary, and it's got a very convoluted way of being voluntary. Germany, a lot more simple, a lot more in line with the pure film industry self-regulation model that America was using. And they go through various formulations until we get this model, which you will end up knowing and being familiar with if you go to Germany, the FSK system. Now, FSK, just pronouncing FSK in the German way, stands for Freiwillige Selbstkontrolle der Filmwirtschaft, or the voluntary self-control, self-regulation of the film industry. So, you know, Germany can be a bit Ronseal. It does what it says on the tin. So the system is just, well, very self-explanatory. FSK, Freiwillige Selbstkontrolle der Filmwirtschaft. So how do they end up splitting up with these handy little logos they've got here? You notice until 2008, the stickers that they had, the certificate labels that they had on films, look how catchy these were. If you're just listening and you're missing out, I want you to picture the glory of the English and the American rating certificate symbols, which is pretty much just, a 15, a PG, an 18. The German one, Freigaben ohne Altersbeschränkung gemäß Sektion 14 Jugendschutzgesetz FSK. It's so catchy, isn't it? It's so catchy, folks.
Just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
I know. Freigegeben ab 6 Jahren gemäß Sektion 14 Jugendschutzgesetz FSK. They've just, look at how packed that is. That certificate looks like a leftist meme, frankly.
Well, they're nice enough to color code it.
Yeah, very, very color coded. We like that. That's handy. But effectively, what are you getting? You've got the universal category. Not surprising, folks. You've got the equivalent of a PG, which is you've got to be over 6 to see it. Over 6 is about where you need to be, which is kind of handy because our PG was always a bit flimsy in who was meant to see it.
A PG is just a glorified U, basically. It's funny enough, actually. I was explaining this to my son the other day because he wants to go and watch the new Friday Five Nights at Freddy's movie, which is coming out later this year. And I'm trying to drill it into his head that the chances are it's not going to be a 12A or definitely lower. It's more likely going to be a 15 or an 18. But he was like, but I can go and see that with you. I was like, no, don't work like that. If it was a 12A, yes. If it was a PG, dude, you can pretty much go on your own. It's not a problem. But yeah, so I was trying to explain to him the BBFC ratings to little success.
I'm just so chuffed. I'm just picturing you explaining to your kid the BBFC ratings. That's so lovely.
But yeah, he didn't get it. He's adamant that he wants to go see it. So I'll have to cross that bridge. I used the example of the Batman because he wanted to go and see that as well. And in America, I think it was like a PG-13. But over here, it was a 15.
Yeah. It that's always been the thing. America's PG-13 is a sort of the PG-13 and the R. They sit quite awkwardly with us, and even adding the 12 didn't really help. I think you still get issues because they're done for just slightly different standards.
That's it, yeah.
But yeah, we're seeing a fair amount of that alignment there. So this is coming in after 1978. And it's fairly aligned to ours, They've sort of jumped the gun on the 12 and got that before we did. And then their 15 for us is a 16, but they still stick to that predictable 18 unless they just ban it. The 18 there quite catchily. Keine Jugendfreigabe gemäß Sektion 14. Jugendschutzgesetz. Oh, but sorry, I didn't translate that yet. Jugendschutzgesetz is the Protection of Children Act, which is just very catchy, So that's keine Jugendfreigabe is just no entry to youth, is how they translate the 18 there. But obviously, after that's not super catchy, and I think someone in the graphic design had a word, and they moved to the slightly more elegant symbols here on the right after 2008. As we said, we're kind of aligned with them in terms of our setup here, splitting universal, young child, except Germany is, bless them, a bit more specific. 12, yeah, directly aligned with us. And then 16, they're going a little harder, and 18. So it's really aligned. But where you do get some differences, they're in interesting areas. So remember, Germany kind of only unifies its cinema rating system after the fall of the Soviet Union and reunification. So trying to look for differences that are illustrative of the different attitudes is a bit weird. They are much closer to us, as you'd expect, than they are to France. Testing your memories here, guys. Murgoot, do you remember Blade 2 and how old you had to be to see Blade 2 in America?
No. Well, I saw it, but I was an adult at the time, so rating didn't really matter to me. I believe it was an R.
Yeah, absolutely correct. So you can see it,
So
you know.
17 must come with a guardian unless you're over 17.
Yep. We got it at 18, and I think we all had a very good time watching that. France, 12. So very, very relaxed attitudes in France. We agree a lot more with Germany. So like us, they banned Evil Dead, the original one. They just completely banned it, and they didn't get a legal version of it until 2016. 2016 minus 15 minutes of footage. Oh, sorry.
Oh, wow.
They got it later with 15 minutes of footage missing. Actually, I think I've messed that up, guys. Let me just check, because I think I might have spread misinformation on the internet, which is the first time I've ever done that. There we go. Sorry. Minor correction. Basically, every version was banned except a heavily cut version, which had 15 minutes removed. And this is 15 minutes out of a movie that's only in the 80-minute range. Okay, so that is not much left of your Evil Dead. However, there's rarely much left of your Evil Dead by the end of the movie, so maybe it's appropriate. But eventually they get the uncensored version in 2016, and it's got the FSK rating, FSK 16. So you can see it earlier in Germany than you can in the UK, where it's still got the 18 rating. Dawn of the Dead 1978, just totally banned until 2019. Very sad. But so you might get the idea that they're a bit stricter than us, but in some areas they're not. So I've got a couple of comparisons here. One is blue is the warmest color, or auf Deutsch, blau ist eine warme Farbe. I think that's a terrible title just because you say eine warme Farbe. It doesn't sound very, I don't know. It sounds a bit weird, right? I would have gone with something else. So that comes out. For people who don't know, Blau ist eine warme Farbe has very explicit gay sex in it, kind of throughout the movie. It's very long. It's very good, but it's suspicious in how much detail it shows.
Yeah, it was NC-17 here in the States at first release, and then it went to not rated, just so that it could get art house play.
Classic maneuver. Yeah, send it to the art house. Yeah, they've done that many a time in the UK. So, yeah, very adult content. And if you're getting an NC-17 in America, it's pretty darn adult. We had it as an 18. Germany, 16. And I've put for contrast there The Dark Knight, which we struggled with when we were rating in the UK. It was very much on the border of getting a 15 rating, but after some controversy, they managed to dial it back to a 12A. And it wasn't until, and it was The Batman, the latest one, that actually got the first modern 15, remembering that, of course, Batman was 15 on video, and then Batman Returns was a 15. So there we go. So in one area, much more liberal than us. In another area, much stricter than us, which is quite interesting.
They seem to be the opposite of the US, where violence, sure, PG-13, PG, if it's not too bloody. Sex, rated R or not rated, or NC-17.
Yeah. It sounds about right, to be honest. It's interesting how the foibles show up. They do, of course, have their own sort of special concerns. So if we have sort of ratings guidelines around discrimination in the UK, as you might expect from Germany, those are turned up to 100. It might be something that's worth delving into in a topic of its own, because lots of films have been affected by strong restrictions on showing appreciation of any authoritarian government in Germany. So the Disney classic Bedknobs and Broomsticks lost about 20 minutes of footage because it depicted the mid-century Germans. That's fun.
Even though they were fighting them?
Yeah, they didn't like it. It's a touchy subject there. So and they end up trimming a lot out. So the rules around that are quite complex, although in context they can be a lot more understanding these days. I'm thinking particularly in the case of Inglourious Bastards, but that's possibly a deep rabbit hole to get into, so I might avoid us falling into that tonight.
You say that, but when South Park, The Stick of Truth was released on the video game, they had to edit out the Nazi space babies because they had the insignia, and so they had to replace that with a generic one for the German release. In fact, to be fair, the European one in general got some major edits. I remember when because I watched someone from the US play it, and of course it's uncensored over there. And then I thought, do you know what? Because I love South Park, I've got to get this game. So I got the game, and then the part of the game where you get abducted and you're on a spaceship, you know, some rather uncomfortable things do happen to you, but our censorship boards decided that those bits were too spicy, and so instead it was replaced with an image of the Thinker with sitting in front of the EU flag, and then it describes what happened in the bits that was cut out, and then it puts you back into the game after that cut's been complete. Livid I was. I took the game back. I was like, I'm not paying for this.
Well, you can understand, you know.
Yeah. I subsequently did pay for it again many years later, but at the time I remember I was so livid. But yeah, when I found out that the Germans were getting done dirty with the old the space babies, you know.
Yeah, my understanding is that in terms of video games, there is extreme strictness, but the rules are all over the place on that. But that is a brief primer on German film censorship. If you're wondering why they are the way they are, it's mostly American influence, inheriting the Hays Code after the war, but still a few interesting deviations in there that I thought stood out. Also, I really like that the Evil Dead here is called in German Tanz der Teufel, or Devil's Dance, which just, that tickles me. Shall we do a topic once on just like really fun German titles?
If they can top Captain Supermarket, sure.
Hang on, I'm going to look at what's Die Hard. Die Hard is always good to look at. What's Die Hard called in German?
Live soft.
Okay. Oh, that is disgraceful. Stirb langsam. Sterb langsam. Die slowly. Weak.
Wow.
Weak. I am disappointed, Germany, honestly. There was a question up top. Yeah, Yezu asking, was ist Blaus eine warme Farbe? That's blue is the warmest color in German, except it's not the warmest color, it's just a warm color. Possibly they're using a bit of a pun there that we don't have in English. How can I say? YouTube might not like me saying this. Warm is a bit of a pun in German. Similar to how we might say fruity or fairy. So something warm is a bit gay, basically. So possibly, given that it's a gay love story, that it's gaining a pun there. Maybe it's a weird coincidence. I'm not sure. But there you see, you get this bonus insight from me that you don't get on any other horror channel that's concerned about entertaining people. I will just give you German translations and weird inside knowledge about German puns. So,
Wife who's asking what Captain Supermarket is.
oh, Captain Supermarket waifu is the Japanese name for the Evil Dead Army of Darkness. So there we go. I'm going to move us off. We're in a weird topic, and we've got quite a few episodes to cover, so we should probably get on with that. Let's start discussing Alfred Hitchcock Presents. There we go. Got that on screen. That is looking nice. All right, lovely. Or do we like this a bit more?
Yeah, we'll stick with that one, I think.
What's your pleasure, Mr. Cotton? Oh dear.
I quite like our
line
names
isn't
at the
in-
bottom. I quite like our names at the bottom. I think that's quite fresh.
Yeah. All right. So Alfred Hitchcock Presents. When I was looking into this, I made something of a mistake because Alfred Hitchcock Presents, a long-running weekly serial. It ran for effectively over 10 years with a minor change in format in the final 3 seasons. And it actually predates The Twilight Zone. And so really, I should have covered this in the previous early horror anthology section. But I had somehow got it in my head that Alfred Hitchcock Presents actually started after The Twilight Zone. So I kind of goofed up here.
Well, there is an 80s run of it, which you occasionally hit syndication. So that may have been what you were thinking about.
Well, I should have realized, because I know that on the so Psycho is made in 1960, and I know that he used a lot of the crew from Alfred Hitchcock Presents to film that. And so I should have thought, oh, hang on, how much of a lead in has he got if he's if The Twilight Zone is starting in 1959, I believe, I think 59. And Hitchcock is, running after that and then filming Psycho in 1960. I really should have realized, but I didn't think so. For reference, this does predate The Twilight Zone a little bit, even though they have a massive overlap with each other. This was a weekly series. Each episode is about 20 minutes, and very much in the manner of The Twilight Zone, you are getting a opener and a closer starring Alfred Hitchcock, who otherwise, I think it's fair to say, is a fair bit more hands-off with the series, would you say, Murgoot?
I'm sorry, I was concentrating on my cat.
No, we're all getting cat bothering tonight, you can hear him in the background, bless him. I think everyone is noticing Gatsby. Hey, Alabastard, how you doing? Yeah. So if we're going to compare this to The Twilight Zone, one, it's longer running than the original series. It's a heck of a lot more episodes per season. So I'll just check, but I believe we're talking, 39 episodes per season for the first 3, and all of them are above sort of 35. So the lowest I've got is 36 episodes in season 4. That's a heck of a lot. If we're comparing it to the Twilight Zone, we're talking there sort of 27, 26 episodes per season. So Alfred Hitchcock is really putting the numbers out. Episodes a tiny bit shorter, but that might just be the trimmed versions that I have on my legally acquired copy that doesn't include the adverts. And I'm going to say I was disappointed that the adverts weren't there on this one.
Just because of Hitchcock's segues into shilling.
I know. I wanted to see what he was shilling because it's fascinating. Yeah. So Hitchcock does a little lead in. We get a brief story, a story of suspense, thrilling stuff, leaning into horror sometimes, but remembering that it's 1955 and there are limits. And I think we're going to be quite aware of the impact of the limits on what you could do on TV and of the aforementioned Hays Code on this, or the TV equivalent of it. Forgive me for being a bit vague on that aspect of it. I'll point it out when we get to it. Hello, Gatsby. What an absolute champion. And as you would expect for something running so long with such a mega influence leading it, we have a huge number of guest stars and actors getting in very early. So Clint Eastwood, Robert Redford, Steve McQueen, Burt Reynolds, Peter Lorre have all appeared in this. And of course, Vera Miles, who we're going to see in the first episode, who would later turn up in Psycho. Leslie Nielsen as well has been in this. So you're getting a whole load of stars really early in their careers. And I've partly chosen the episodes tonight because of some of those stars, which I thought would be interesting. So shall we get into discussing the first episode, the very first episode they released, Revenge?
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's go with that one.
All right, fantastic. So let me get my reference here, folks. Okay, so Revenge is first broadcast October 2nd, 1955. It is directed by Alfred Hitchcock, and it's one of only 18 episodes in the run that was directed by him. As you can imagine, he's an active filmmaker at the time, so he is very much in demand. But over the course of the whole run, only doing 18 episodes, you get the feeling that he is not able to be as involved as Rod Serling was with the Twilight Zone. We get Alfred coming on with this debut with a young actress called Vera Miles, who we will later see in Psycho and the very underrated Psycho 2. But the very first thing we see is Alfred introducing the story, if I can find it. How does this happen every time, folks?
Well, first he introduces it as a new series of mysteries, and then he goes into introducing Revenge, and then he segues into the shill by saying, "Oh, excuse me, the actors are running about 60 seconds late. Well, we need a sponsor," and then immediately goes to commercial.
Oh, I forgot that. I loved that shill.
Could learn a thing or two from that.
I
certainly could learn a thing or two. I mean,
yeah,
I was amazed. I love that. None of that. We'll be right back after these important announcements. None of that bull. It was a nice little quirky little joke. Oh yeah, no, they're running about 60 seconds late. Well, it's a good thing we've got some time for some sponsors. Boom.
It was so cheeky. I absolutely loved it. And Murgoot, this might sound weird, but for us Brits, the American ad placements are very unusual. Like they just come in at different places. We would typically get an ad break right in the middle. But the sort of multiple ad breaks really throw us off.
Yeah, this is the old format where you do the intro and intro music, the intro, cut to a commercial break for the vignette, one in the middle, which this one didn't do, and then one at the end.
Yeah. Twilight Zone, exact same format. So yeah, this is a smooth shill, but there's an interesting thing in just like the whole manner of doing it. How would you describe the way that Alfred delivers these segments?
I would say it's almost comical.
Yeah.
With it,
Very tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah. There's a certain element of charm, which I think was adopted in sort of later shows like Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction, when you've got Jonathan Frakes doing his little presentations, and he'll always sort of have a little quirky little one-liner before before an episode starts, and then sort of afterwards once the episode's concluded, and then was it fact, was it fiction, and then he make some little cheesy one-liner and smirk to the camera, and as if to say, I'm really pleased with that one.
We love the pun, so
we do.
Him dropping this in, I think droll style, tongue in cheek, he's kind of giving you the nod and the wink, which I think also helps him if he's trying to get around TV censorship. If he's making it all very clear, like this is a bit of a joke. We're just having a fun thing here. I think that's very much his style. And if you remember the trailer for Psycho, where he's just giving you a tour of the Bates Motel.
Oh yeah.
He's using this sort of style as well. And I really enjoy seeing it. And I think he must have just carried that over from doing this show.
I think so. Yeah.
Knowing people were used to it. So I've got this screen cap as well. This is from the next episode, but he just starts talking about the glass eye, making a droll joke, and then acting as if it's a complete coincidence that he's talking about a glass eye, because the story involves a glass eye, and it's called The Glass Eye. And it's like, you absolute cheesemeister.
I'll tell you what else I loved about Revenge, because obviously that was the first episode in the series. It was like when he was explaining the format, it wasn't delivered in sort of like a very sort of boring professional way. It was almost like when he was like, this is what will happen. I will introduce an episode and give you the title. We'll then play the title, and then we'll watch the episode, and I'll come back again at the end in case you were too to explain it to you, in case you were too dumb to understand it. It's like you don't get that nowadays.
I wonder if he was almost like saying, like, I do need to explain it to the audience. You need to know what's happening. This is the equivalent of the announcer introducing the play for the day or something.
Yeah, I almost felt it was kind of like a because even he was like, I'm not going to be in the show that much. I'm just here for the intro. I'm just here for the end, and I'm just here to say goodbye. Like, very upfront about it. But in particular especially with the explanation of the show, it was almost like, it was almost like him saying, I know you'll get this format, but I'm having to tell you what this show is about, because apparently the people who are working on it seem to think you won't understand it.
I really like this. Yes, Warholian. He is above the format, and he's letting you know. And we love this. Think of Richard O'Brien in The Crystal Maze. Someone who's just looking at you, telling you, this is a silly little thing and I'm bored. The contestants are rubbish, so I'm just going to play a flute right now. We love that kind of thing. It's a good British energy to it. So He gives us that intro, sets a tone that is really quite off with the rest of the episode. Because this does get a little bit disturbing, I think. We'll move into it. So, TCG, do you fancy... Oh, actually, mate, no, I definitely want you to do the one for the glass eye. So, I don't know, Murgoot, do you feel like doing the synopsis for the episode? The
Certainly.
pint of Guinness summary?
Certainly.
All right, I'll get the Guinness going.
Carl and Elsa are recently married, fairly. They're Elsa's at home. She's talking to a neighbor played by Frances Bevier. Just a quick aside, she played Aunt Bee on the Andy Griffith Show for quite a while and got typecast after that as the aunt. They're talking. Elsa, Vera Miles' character, states that, oh, I did have to spend some time in the hospital for nerves. But I'm healthy as a horse. I'm a dancer. I'm graceful. Physically, I'm strong. Carl comes back. They talk. Elsa goes out for a walk and seemingly, well, she gets attacked and Carl calls a doctor and all the neighbors are worried and they go to the police and they're driving down the road and she points out a man in a gray suit saying, well, that's him. And Carl formulates revenge and beats him up, kills him. And they're driving down the road later and she points out another guy. Well, that's who attacked me. And he just stares off into the distance like, oh no, what have I done? And then it switches to Alfred Hitchcock. And he says, well, he realized what he'd done and for taking the law into his own hands, he goes to jail, and it's implied that she goes to the hospital again.
Yeah. Now, you've mentioned that, and it's been caught by chat as well. Where is this? Yeah. This has a real feel to me of something that was network mandated to get round the censors, and I think it's very crafty. Your stories do have to have the element of morality to them. You can't really show the criminals getting away with their crimes, and that's why Alfred comes on at the end after the story to assure you that they didn't get away with it, that justice was served and all was right. And he's done this in 2 of the stories we cover tonight, which makes me think it may be more than a random occurrence or a coincidence.
I think John Gorris said in the chat earlier that he tends to do that where there's cases where, you know, there's an individual needs to be punished for doing something that they shouldn't have. Do you know what? I loved it. I love the afterword. So, ladies and gentlemen, crime doesn't pay, which is why you need sponsors. Speaking of which,
oh yeah,
I love it.
It's so sarcastic, and he's just above it, and I kind of love that. Now, in fairness, like, as well as being a sort of the fourth wall breaking moment of British irony, there is a point at which you can say, like, you don't need to show your man being arrested. Like, that's the real point of it. Isn't that he is caught by cops and is punished? So you don't really need his character arc. You don't need to see him go through the formal justice process, which means you don't need a court set, a police station set, or to hire additional actors to be policemen. because like his character arc is already done the moment he realizes that her nerves are gone and she's just made him go for a completely innocent guy.
Yeah. Certainly
But
saves time as well, because these episodes are very, very short and and to the point. Because with taking Alfred Hitchcock's introduction afterword segments, you're talking what, a 20-minute episode, 21 minutes.
yeah. There was another moment that I'm pretty darn sure was added in for the censors, if either of you caught that. Or rather two moments, I suppose you could say, but one of them's kind of a subtle one.
Which was?
So they're on bed right now, macking, as they say up north. And
But they sleep on twin beds.
yes.
That's mandated by the censors at the time.
Oh, right.
There we go.
Okay.
Yep. So, they're passionate, they're in love, but you got the twin beds, and they also go out of their way to mention being married, newly married.
Right.
So it's that sort of assurance that everything is above board.
Gotcha.
Which kind of helps when, they're getting a bit saucy here on TV in 1955.
It was a bit. It was a little bit. And even, when she got those pins out, laid on the old seat, the old chair outside.
Yeah, she's sunbathing. There's not much you're
I was like, oh, this is a bit more than the ankle I was expecting for 55. Jesus.
I know.
Hello.
Alfred wanted to push the boat. He was very happy to make things a bit spicier, I think, and I think his frustration with what he was allowed to show is kind of notable in a fair few projects. He was always fighting studios over this as well. So he gets that in, and Maverick, no, what is this? That is Tears of Joy, right? Right?
Definitely.
Good. I'll also note that I really didn't recognize Vera Miles in this. I've seen Psycho a whole bunch, but I found her quite unrecognizable.
You know what? I didn't put two and two together either.
Yeah,
but I did think I was watching. It was one of those sort of like things in the back of your mind. You're like, I recognize that face. But where do I recognize it from? And it wasn't until the chat was saying, "Oh, Vera Miles in Psycho," I was like, "Oh my god, it's her!" Wow.
Yeah, I would have. I expected I'd pick her out right away, but I just didn't. They gave her quite a makeover in 1960 to make her look more like Janet Leigh.
Right.
But I don't think it's Dr. Prepper. Yeah, I'm with you. I think she is. I mean, it doesn't help that she's playing someone very stressed and fragile here, but she does look a fair bit healthier in Psycho, I think. Like she's maybe a bit too skinny. They are saying that she's a ballerina, which is why she's so very skinny.
Healthy before or after the shower scene?
Oh no, she's fine. It's Janet Leigh who does the shower scene. Vera Miles.
Oh,
is
of
fine.
course, yeah. Sorry.
She's entirely wholesome the whole way throughout. Although I think Psycho 2 tells you that she later hooks up with her sister's, her dead sister's boyfriend, which I think is a bit. I know about that one, man. That's a choice. Anyway, so you have this quite stressful scenario where he comes back, and I found her performance actually quite unnerving here. She does come off as very fragile after the attack.
Yeah. I have to. I'm just gonna say it. This one for me was perhaps not the least enjoyable, but least enjoyable. Not in a bad way, just because I actually watched this one last. I watched Poison first, then The Glass Eye, and because I watched them in order that you titled them on your community post. This for me was the most predictable one by a country mile.
It's also the pilot.
Yeah, and actually, you know, that does make sense as to why it would be.
Yeah, I think I'd go with you on that. This is one of those ones where I was thinking of Twilight Zone in my head, and just thinking you haven't really mastered filling the 22 minutes.
Yeah,
Because and that is a tough gig, especially Twilight Zone can manage it with just a single actor for most of it. And just the actor has to. I'm thinking of like the season 2 premiere, which is about a pilot of a crashed plane in the desert, and it's basically just one guy going around. He's got almost nothing to work with for 19 minutes, and it takes a heck of a lot of skill to carry that off. Whereas I felt this one, there was a certain amount of just trying to fill the time.
You think in the car, driving around?
I think in the car, I'm thinking baking the cake and chatting with the neighbor. Although it was quite sweet to see that sort of idea of how the neighbors would interact. That was quite nice. I mean, I know you had to get some details about her backstory, but it did feel to me like they were trying to fill the time a little bit until they could get onto the details.
Yeah.
And then I am kind of with you that I did see where this was going. Although I liked how they did it. I mean, the stylish aspect of him like slowly palming the wrench just out of sight. I really loved that.
Phrasing.
I said the wrench, not the wench. Come on.
Yeah, no, I will say, like, I did like how they approached it too. I thought it was pretty cool. But yeah, I just felt like as soon as she was like, "Oh, there he is," I was like, "Oh, I know where this is going."
Yeah. Yeah.
I would have loved to have been wrong, like I was with the glass eye. I was that. Well,
Oh yeah.
and I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Oh yes. I'm just looking for my let's see. Oh good. Yeah, I've got it. I think I've got that sort of that I just want to get their sort of worried expressions. Yeah, I just loved how that was delivered. Right. Yeah, we get Alfred closing off, and we sort of already covered how he does it. That's the next episode.
I have the quote.
There we go. This is the one. Oh, go for the quote if you want.
Yeah. Oh, that was a heartwarming little story, wasn't it? Obviously, heaven does protect the working girl. Now I have a confession. He opens up the box. This touches the eye inside with a slight grimace. Is not a glass eye. We were unable to find one, but we got the next best thing. I hope you don't mind. Close the green box. Good night.
Yeah. I found the one that he closes off with this. I've got this image labeled "pun then morals" because he does. He said he's given you this, fairly awful tale like that. You close this episode off with the haunted look of the guy as he realizes his wife is mad, and he's just gone and killed a guy for no reason. So after it's a haunting way to finish. Just a right close up on his face and a fade to darkness. Then Alfred comes on, hits you with the, "Oh yeah, he was arrested. Don't worry about it, guys. Anyway, we were going to call this Death of a Salesman, but there were protests." I'm like, jeez. He's not taking it seriously.
It is a proper tonal shift, isn't it?
Yeah.
Big time. I love that. I don't know if it's just because of the way that he presents it, because he quite the way I sort of get, or the vibe I get, is that he clearly isn't a TV presenter of sorts. Like, he doesn't have that sort of style that you would associate with a TV presenter. He's just goofing with it, and I'm sure, like, it's all prepped in advance and whatnot, but it just seems so natural.
He's so deadpan.
He's completely deadpan. I mean, so these were all written by him, for him by a comedy writer called James Aldice. And you just know he filmed them in a massive batch. Whereas, so Rod Serling, and I'm sorry for making this comparison over and over again. I will break it up a bit, but Rod Serling is frequently just appearing on the set, in the scene of the Twilight Zone episodes. He is physically there, and that means he was there for the filming of at least part of it. Whereas I think busy Mr. Hitchcock probably just filmed them in a massive batch and left a sort of generic shill introductions.
Yeah, I can't imagine that he would have needed to be there for several days filming what essentially would be like 30-second, 1 minute little intros, outros. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That they would have been done in a maybe like in a day or two. We've got all the episodes. These are the episodes. Here's the script. Off you go. Right. Hello.
I'm thinking of How I Met Your Mother and how they did the intros for that.
Right.
Was that just like filmed for like years in advance in just like 2 weeks?
Never watched it.
Oh, okay.
Never watched it.
Oh, right. I will drop some lore. How do I actually know a bit of pop culture that you don't? This is weird. We're in the Twilight Zone now. So How I Met Your Mother, chat, correct me if I'm wrong. You can guess what it's about from the story. And the episodes open with a off-camera guy talking to his children and setting up what happens in the episode. And the children just react to what's being said, often in a kind of generic way. And the show goes on for years, and those children do not age. And that's because they just filmed so much footage at the start of the first season, and then they just mined it and mined it and mined it. I will wait to be corrected on that, but that is my understanding on how they did that. So the cast is getting old, and they're using footage from like 5 or 6 years ago. We have a reference here to Alfred Hitchcock Presents from a certain Stephen King. I don't know if you've heard of him. I don't know if he's done much, but
never heard of him.
Well, I've got this book from him called Dan's Macabre, and I just wondered, has he said anything about Alfred Hitchcock Presents? Now, he's got a couple of references to it in here. In talking about another show, he says probably the best horror series ever put on TV was Thriller, which ran on NBC from September of 1960 until the summer of 1962. Really, only 2 seasons plus reruns. Skipping over a little bit. The contemporaries of Thriller were also weekly bloodbaths. It was the time of the Untouchables, starring Robert Stack as the inflappable Elliot Ness. Skipping over a bit. It was TV's violent era. As a result, after a slow first 13 weeks, Thriller was able to become something more than the stock imitation of Alfred Hitchcock Presents that it was apparently meant to be. Early episodes dealt with cheating husbands trying to hypnotize their wives into walking over high cliffs, poisoning Aunt Martha to inherit her fortune so that the gambling debts could be paid off, and all that tiresome sort of thing. That sounds a bit scornful, but he is positive about it later. There's a second reference later in Dan's Macabre. Individual TV programs have produced brilliant or near brilliant excursions into the supernatural. Alfred Hitchcock Presents, for instance, gave us adaptations of several Ray Bradbury stories. The best of them was probably The Jar. I don't know. I saw a horror thing about a jar, but it also involved a My Little Pony statue, so it's probably something different. One terrifying William Hope Hodgson story, The Thing in the Weeds, a non-supernatural bone freezer from the pen of John D. MacDonald, The Morning After. And fans of the bizarre will remember the episode where the cops ate a murder weapon, The Leg of Lamb, one based on a story by Roald Dahl. So he's a bit more positive there.
Yeah, actually, speaking of Roald Dahl, the episode Poison was Was it inspired by Roald Dahl, or did he just have a
Written
hand
by-
in writing it? He'd actually
He
written
wrote
it.
the short story, and it was adapted by.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I know. I
Quincy
wasn't familiar
Robinson.
with the name.
It's a good thing I watched the 1955 version and not the 2023 version, which was adapted for modern audiences.
Wait, there's another version of it?
Oh no, it's a joke.
Oh,
Roald
thank
Dahl.
goodness. I could believe it, though. I could
Yeah.
believe it.
Yeah.
You wait and see. We're going to do that version of the Terror at 20,000 feet a few times, because that's come back over and over again.
Yeah. Speaking
I-
of that one, speaking of Terror at 20,000 feet,
Oh, hello.
are we talking about when are we going to get onto the old glass?
I would like to. I'd like to finish on Poison. So shall we go with Shatner?
Shall we?
Let's hit him up with the old Shatner beam.
Oh, right,
All
here we
right.
go. And I love it because the character's called Jim as well. And I'm thinking, Kirk?
Yeah, I know. What a coincidence.
I know,
Have I
right?
got his? Yeah, I've got. There we go. I think I had it up actually. The yeah, the one with his eyeball there. Yes.
Yeah.
He gives us an incredibly droll opening.
I've just realised I gave you the afterword for the glass eye, not the
Yeah.
other one.
Don't worry
I
about
don't
it.
care. I love this episode. This was easily my favourite one.
It's
Absolutely
good.
loved
Let's
it.
get you the Shatner. I
Right.
think I'm with you on that. I think our preference order is going to be slightly out, but I definitely agree. This was my favourite of what we covered. There's your boy,
Right,
William
lovely.
Shatner, right
There
there.
he is. Right, so
Hit us up with that Guinness summary.
Jim's cousin Julia had sadly passed away, so he was over there with, I assume, his wife. His wife, like clearing out her old place. And while they're clearing out the place, he comes across a glass eye in a little box, and he basically explained that Julia was essentially a femcel who by her 30s hadn't found love, she hadn't found a husband, or she hadn't had any children, and she was living a very mundane life in her little apartment, cooking on a single stove for herself, working the same job day in day out, having lunch at the same little tea shop every day, watching all the couples come in and live their lives in harmony, and thinking, when is it going to be her chance? When is Julia going to find love? If only there was a community of people who were like-minded like her, where she could go and raise her grievances, because she was in her 30s and she needed to be married. Damn it! Spoiler alert, by the way. Fun little fact: the woman playing her was actually 48 at the time, not 30. Yeah. But anyway, her one little vice was that she would take a young 12-year-old boy. I'm going to call him Timmy because they all seem to be Timmy in these shows and in this era, to the theatre. And on one particular day when she took him, Timmy, by the way, is an absolute brat, but
he's the worst, isn't he?
We'll ignore Timmy, because the important thing is she takes him to see a ventriloquist performance. A guy called Max. What was it?
Collodi.
That's it, Max Collodi. And she is absolutely enthralled by him. And she essentially falls madly in love with the guy. And so she decides that she's going to pack up her bags. She's going to quit her job. And with the savings that she's accrued over the years, she's basically going to essentially stalk him, if you will. Just a tour, as he goes touring around the country, she's going to get tickets and she's going to go and see every single show that he's at. While she is also doing this, she's also writing to him vehemently, the old love letters and whatnot. And eventually George responds and he agrees to meet her. But the first meeting is a little bit strange, because he's like, it's going to be a bit weird, but I only want the first meeting to be 5 minutes, and I'm going to have my dummy George there, if you don't mind. But yeah, after 5 minutes, I'll make a decision as to whether or not we continue to see each other. And of course, she's so excited, so excited. I should also mention as well that she sent a picture of. He asked for a picture of her while they were writing to each other, and she basically catfished him. She sent him a picture of herself when she was in her 20s.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
It's a photo slightly older than.
Yeah. Hey, you were a lot thinner in this photo. But anyway,
Do you reckon it was from the old MySpace angle?
Must have been. It must have been. This is probably where Tom got the idea for MySpace. Anyway, yeah. So she agrees. So she agrees to his proposal of meeting up, and she gets all spruced up. She's all nervous and excited, and she goes into the hotel room, and there he is. He's in the corner of a dark room, and she's sort of at the edge of the room talking to him, and they're having a bit of a cordial conversation. They're admiring each other. She sort of says, I hope you don't mind about the picture, blah blah blah, and he's very complimentary of her. And as the conversation is going on, she's gradually getting closer to him, ever so slightly, to the point where her time is almost up. She looks at her pocket watch, sees, oh, hang on, my time's almost up. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I don't want it to end. And before she goes, she sort of almost lunges at him to give him a cuddle. But he doesn't reciprocate. Instead, Max Collodi collapses to the floor. And then when she tries to, shake him, oh my God, what's happened? Shaking him, Max, are you okay? Are you okay? His head falls off. and then you look up and then you realize, oh my God, the dummy is Max. And then he takes off the mask, the dummy mask, and it's revealed that it's actually I don't know the politically correct term, so I'm just going to say he was there we go. He was a height restricted individual. She then freaks out, and he's like, "Get out, get out, get out!" And then she flees away, and then it turns out that when he goes down to collect the Max dummy, which is the man, one of the eyes is missing. And then Jim ends off the story by saying that Max Collodi gave no more shows after that. But there were rumors that he was part of a circus act that was traveling around, and apparently there was one person. And then it sort of fades to the little man riding the horse, like riding a horse and carriage, and that he would make children laugh all over the land. And then as he turned and faced the camera, for some reason, he was wearing an eye patch. But okay.
Well, that adds some meat to the story, and I think it already was quite a meaty story. Yeah.
Yeah,
there is a lot to get into on that one.
I thought to myself, and what really threw me off about this one, right, was every performance when he was introduced on stage, he was already sitting in the chair and he wasn't moving. And I didn't pick up on it. I didn't pick up on it because I immediately thought to myself, well, that dummy can't be an actual dummy because the way it's moving is almost like a face under it. Is almost like someone underneath a mask. And so I sort of said to myself, okay, the dummy is definitely human, and there must be like some sort of scam going on. I mean, look how freaky that is.
It's so wonderfully uncanny.
Yeah,
unheimlich. If you want some more German tonight.
And so I thought to myself that she would meet up with him. And it would be him and a human, and she discovered that actually he's a fraud and that, he's working together with, I don't know, his child or something like that, or like some deformed child. And that would be the freaky bit. I was not expecting, Max to be the actual grown man to actually be fake. I was like, oh my God, what on earth?
It is a great twist. Look, we have. This is one of those tricky things when you see a ventriloquist dummy story, and there are a lot of them. There are very few directions you can go with it, and so I think it's kind of hard to sell them a lot of the time. last time we looked at this was 1945's Dead of Night, and it kept you on.
Yeah.
It did not give you the answer of, is the dummy actually alive or not? Is it all in the chap's head? It never sort of, how can I say, fired Chekhov's rifle. This twist, I think, is novel. It's a really good subversion of your expectations, which was actually stolen I shouldn't say stolen. The same twist was used later in a much bigger production, which I'll happily spoil for anyone who's curious, from the creators of Saw. It's called Dead Silence. And they use this exact same thing of the puppeteer is actually the puppet. But they don't quite get the same level of heart in it that this episode does.
Oh yeah, this episode is really well done. All the actors. It was written by Sterling Silliphant and produced. He was a primary writer for the Perry Mason show.
I'm really glad you said Sterling Silliphant, because I picked up on that, because you do not forget that name.
Right. And he also wrote the highly acclaimed In the Heat of the Night with Sidney Poitier. And then there's William Shatner, of course. Jessica Tandy, if you might recognize her, she's Daisy in Driving Miss Daisy.
I haven't seen the film. Just on Sterling Silliphant there, just because chat will recognise. You last heard that name when Murgoot said it, but before that, you heard the name Sterling Silliphant when we covered Village of the Damned from 1960. I saw that name. It's like, I know I've seen that somewhere else. I know I have. So he did that 3 years before he wrote Village of the Damned. Sorry, carry on, Murgoot.
And then there's Tom Conway, who played Collodi, the dummy. Full-grown man as a dummy. He's actually George Saunders' brother.
Really?
Yes. For AA fans out there, Punish George Saunders is kind of his icon.
Oh, I can see it actually. In this one where he's on his wiki where he's in the light. Yeah, I can see it.
And
Goodness
then
me.
Billy Barty plays the actual Collodi. He founded the Little People of America in 1957, and he's one of the most famous little people in Hollywood. He was in the 1976 or 77 Lord of the Rings that was rotoscoped by Ralph Bakshi. He played the voice and the rotoscope model for Bilbo Baggins and Samwise Gamgee. And he was in Willow, among many other things.
Hardworking guy.
He was too young by 1 year to be in Wizard of Oz, but he did play in Under the Rainbow in the 80s, which was a comedy based on the actual making of Wizard of Oz and all the havoc they created in Hollywood.
Somewhat infamous. We've got a comment here from Dr. Prepper. Yes, Jessica Tandy is in The Birds as well. So Hitchcock worked with her again there. I'm just trying to see when The Birds was made, just so I can check how distant it was.
Only a few years.
Yeah, not that far off, I would expect. I'm looking in the wrong section. I'm looking at stage work there. Okay, The Birds, 1963, so 6 years afterwards. So Hitchcock is drawing from this cast quite a lot. Now, on Billy Barty, I mean, how can I say? There's lots of angles to take this from. So one thing, we've got some vintage Shatner here. It is quality Shatner. It is, I believe, pre-Star Trek Shatner, no?
Very much priest.
Very much
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
10
And
years separated.
Yeah. I hadn't factored this in at all. So when he's just there to kind of bookend it, it really surprised me. But there's something in that this episode does that the other one didn't, that I really appreciate. And you know how I talked about how Revenge seemed like it needed to kind of pad its time, even for 22 minutes? I feel like Shatner was doing that a bit here, but it didn't feel like padding. It was good scene setting. It was a handy way of dropping information, setting the tone, adding a bit of wistfulness, and making sure that we only saw the bits of the story that we needed to and could skip around quite freely. And it just
also
made the story
showed
flow
that-
so much better.
Yeah, and also showed that Julia was mourned in the end, even though she led such a lonely life.
Yeah,
There were
absolutely.
people that loved her, yeah.
That was a really touching bit because I think she's a character that you can really warm to. I have an extra Shatner image I just want to get here because you always need more Shatner. And I'm struggling to find it. There we go. I've kind of caught him midway out of being faded, but we'll just enjoy some bonus Shatner here for a moment. Yeah, this one I just feel has a lot of heart to it in a way that was unexpected, but very appreciated. And Shatner's framing really helps, I think. Also, the way her life is depicted was really touching and believable. Just trying to find that early picture we have of her where she's cooking. There we go. Now, this is giving any health and safety staff an absolute aneurysm.
Yeah.
But this is one of those bonus things, you know, anytime we reach far back into the past, you get these amazing little details, like her just working off a single flame. I was fascinated by that. I don't know about you two.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've got an air fryer, so I look at that and I think, I don't envy you in your position there, dear. But you know what? It is interesting, sort of like to have this sort of window into the past, because I've recently started watching Brookside, old episodes of Brookside. I know, and the series, well, the drama, I should say, kicked off in 1982, and in that they're making references to the point that they don't even have central heating, which is something that you just take for granted these days. And they're like, yeah, we don't actually have central heating in our house. Like I'm almost expecting them to, you know, come out and say that they have outside toilets, you know. It's just
I'm remembering my granddad's house had outside toilets only, you know.
I actually have a mate whose house, well, I say it's a mate, it's a friend of a friend, but they actually have an outhouse in their home, because see, it was the house is that old that they actually have an outside toilet still installed.
Nice.
I might have actually mentioned that before on the stream. I don't know, but yeah. But yeah, seeing this when she's cooking like 3 different things on one single stove, I was like, I tell you what, someone should sweep her off her feet, mate, because you know that is.
She's got skills, hasn't she?
She's got skills, absolutely. You know.
Yeah. So these little cute details, I really liked the way we took the time to picture her life. It didn't feel like padding. It was just cute, and I thought she was adorable. She was someone that you could really, really sort of feel for. And the thing about following an act around the country, it got me wondering, because I've seen this a fair few times. If anyone has read Tipping the Velvet, I realize I am constantly bringing degenerate material to your attention, but that's a fun novel that starts off with, again, a woman getting infatuated, only in this time she's infatuated with a female stage performer who she follows around the country, and she's basically stalks in this manner as well. So I wonder if it was quite a common thing, or at least not unheard of, right?
I mean, there are people who do that.
Mm.
Who will,
Fans turning into fanatics.
yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
I mean, everywhere I go, I seem to see Mima. Wink. I'm joking.
Oh, we love Mima.
Throwing those pineapple pizza emojis in my face every time. I appreciate you, Mima.
Also, the little detail of her collecting the clippings was so adorable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice, and like I'm trying to build up the picture of this is a story with so much heart in it. Now, they get to the twist, and we've talked about how well the twist was handled. Like, we should say, like, this has managed to walk a really fine line, because the dummy is creepy. It's properly creepy and uncanny. Can we just enjoy how creepy it is?
Oh, it's do you know what? Oh my god, this was just oh god, just when he looked at her like that, oh my days. I was noping out big time.
Holy crap!
Murgoot, were you familiar with this beforehand, or did this catch you out?
This one, I'd read the wiki page before I watched it. I had a hard time finding it until I found the playlist on a certain place. But yeah, let's see.
Yeah, the Wikipedia does spoil it. If you're trying to scroll through and find out, oh, what episode would I be interested in, be very careful with the Wikipedia list, because it does just drop mega spoilers on everything, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah, no. Okay, I was wrong. I was looking something up because they use a guy in a mannequin suit, Devo, on their de-evolution tour. Had Boogie Boy, but it's a different mask. Thank God.
Yeah, this thing is incredibly creepy. Like, they use the just smaller performer in a mask in Dead of Night as well, and it's this amazing combo of there is no attempt whatsoever to make the mask look real, but when the movements are real, you get this horrible sense of the uncanny, just like he's not moving like he's meant to. What's going on here? Your brain is being throwing all the skinwalker detection alarms are going off, and this
the
was
way
brilliant.
he removes it, pulling from the back and making like it's peeling his face off. That was a nice touch.
It was a very nice touch, and the thing of, I thought it was interesting that he jumps up onto the table and he does this manic movement that is again unsettling. It feels like it's not a doll-like, but it's not human-like, and you're wondering what's kind of possessed him. But he is just sort of in a manic rage, and it kind of overloads you. The fact that you've also got the chap's decapitated head is just sort of rolling on the ground as well adds to the scene. It's this it's a very intense moment and an effective scare. But what I really liked about this, and I know I'm going to sound a bit bleeding heart here, but I liked that the punchline wasn't just it's not just he's a dwarf, he's a little person. Like, you feel the heartbreak for this guy as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of mirroring that goes on in this episode,
Yeah.
Like, right down to the point, like, again, I mentioned it earlier when she sent a picture of herself when she was in her 20s, and she's worried about what he would make of her appearance. Well, okay, reflect that onto him, because there's this, little guy who's like, is she going to accept me, or is or is because they're both lying in a way about their appearance. It's just one is magnified tenfold. Yeah, I mean, they're both clearly very lonely people in that regard.
Both lead isolated lives,
Yeah,
You get
yeah.
a sense of that.
There's a lot of similarities between the two of them, but obviously, you only hear it from Jim's perspective of his cousin. But I imagine, if there was someone who was a relative of Max Collodi telling his story, you'd imagine that there would be similarities in the way that they live their lives. I mean, sure, they would have had different settings and whatnot, but essentially, it's the same job day in, day out, lonely, fending for yourself, wondering when true love's going to come. Are you going to get married? Are you going to have children? All these thoughts clearly would have been in the mind of Max Collodi at the same time. So essentially, they're both Crow. Her deception was dwarfed by his. Dr. Pepper as well, magnified or dwarfed. You guys are absolute brutes, and I love ya. Well done. I should have said dwarfed. But yeah, I mean, yeah, they have very similar stories. Without hearing Max's story, you can infer that he has a very similar life experience to her, but perhaps for different reasons.
There's that parallel, and she just, in her eagerness, she ruins it, and maybe it could have worked. I don't know. Maybe, but she was she was impatient, and so she rushed it, and then it was too much for her to discover at once.
I mean, it was there's this. It's quite. There was quite a lot to take in. Obviously, the person that she thought was her love fell on the floor and his head fell off. And then the puppet comes to life. I don't blame her for pegging it.
She might have been up for a hornswoggling.
I don't know if anyone who watches MTV's Catfish, imagine Neve and his little camera crew was there at the time.
Yeah, well, I think you've. It was going to be a difficult sell, but I think you have drawn out something that I find really impressive, which is just the fact that they aren't. He's not just a punchline, and I really like that. I mean,
no.
This is 1957, so we are 25 years after Todd Browning's Freaks, which has already done a lot of work to kind of humanize people in this guy's situation, right? So this is good. We wouldn't want to see a backstep, and this closer where he's clearly burned by the experience as well, I think is touching. And I just wondered, what did you make of him now wearing an eye patch? How are we interpreting that
choice? I just wonder whether there was some sort of continuity error, or whether they hearken, or whether they sort of hearken to Alfred Hitchcock's afterword. We don't have the glass eye, but we have the next best thing.
Oh gosh. Oh, maybe I missed that. I know if stuff is flying over my head. I took the vibe that basically he viewed that as his ability to do the Max Collodi thing had ended, and his Max Collodi dummy has taken his eye, and that's sort of a part of his life is gone, a part of him is gone, and so he takes an eye. I think possibly he.
How about this? Because Jim does say that he is a touring. I believe he does say that he is a touring ventriloquist. What if he removed his own eye and put it in the dummy?
Well, he stated that he stopped being a ventriloquist. He was never seen in stage scene ever again.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do think he removed his own eye. I think he did it as a sacrifice, like it's a memory of a bit he's left behind. So just like the old Max Collodi dummy is there lying, missing an eyeball, he's left one sort of with that part of his life, which I think is kind of a really dark thing to add on there. Which Alfred will then come on and make jokes about in about 10 seconds, you know, because that's how he rolls.
Yeah. Unless it's less sinister in that maybe he didn't remove his eye. I mean, maybe he just decided that I'll wear an eye patch as almost like a tribute to my fallen colleague.
Yeah, that's a bit less dark, I think. We can go with that. It's kept ambiguous, but there's depth to this that I really like. It's not just a scare, and this one really impressed me. It's not just the Shatner that makes this my favourite episode of the ones we've covered for this episode, for this stream even. Murgoot, did you have anything you want to add about the glass eye?
You guys covered it. I mean, you hit all three darker, and darkest.
Yeah, we certainly did. All right, well, we can move on now. We'll cover the episode Poison, which I think I'm going to be controversial on. I did not like this one as much. I think it's interesting for what we learn about Hitchcock. Interesting for some of his techniques being at play. Like, this is kind of classic Hitchcock direction and method. But at the same time, this story didn't grab me as well, and I really thought it would, because it's based off a Roald Dahl story. And I was kind of hyped for it. I don't know about you, Murgoot. Did you anticipate that this would be the best of the bunch?
I went in with an open mind on all of them. It's even Glass Eye, which I read the wiki on, but I went in with an open mind. I liked Poison. Just snakes creep me out, so it makes for good horror.
Yeah, that will do it. Yeah, maybe it's if you have got that fear of snakes already, it lands a bit more than it did for me. I was very interested in just them opening in Malaya. That was delightful. They're just these little things that aren't noteworthy to the production at the time, but to us they're fascinating. Again, this is coming from the first episode of season 4, I want to say. Let me just quickly check that. No, sorry, first episode of season... I'm getting that wrong, folks. It is the first episode of season 4. There we go. Yeah, so this also was directed by Hitchcock. Again, one of only 18 to be directed. And it was premiered on October 5th, 1958. I am momentarily distracted by the fact that the next episode not only has Cloris Leachman, who we know and love from It's a Good Life, the fabulous episode of Twilight Zone, but also Scatman Crothers, a.k.a. Dick Halloran in The Shining. That's blown my mind. I'm so distracted by that. I've got to get off that. Scatman Crothers turning up in Alfred Hitchcock Presents. That is mind-blowing. Right. So as we're saying, based on a Roald Dahl story, adapted by another chap whose name I need to check again. Casey Robinson, and Alfred Hitchcock directs. Murgoot, would you like to do the pint of Guinness summary for this one?
Certainly. Actually, I'll let you do it. I'll be right back. I've got to chase my cat again.
Oh, bless. All right. We'll all take one for the team on the old pint of Guinness summary. Okay, here we go. We've got it going. Pint of Guinness is being poured. So very simple. In Malaya, a chap calls his friend. He's his business partner. I shouldn't look at the chat. Dear. chap is walked in on his business partner, and he's a state of intense alarm. He is tucked up in bed under the covers, terrified that a snake has crawled onto his stomach, a poisonous snake that if it bites him, he has basically got no chance of surviving. His partner doesn't take him seriously. He thinks he's a bit of a wreck. He thinks he's a bit of an alcoholic and unreliable. And he kind of enjoys taunting him for a bit. But the guy is absolutely earnest. He's terrified. He's so afraid to move in case of being bitten. And we cannot see the snake, so we just don't know what to believe. Eventually, a doctor is called, and they try some things to help the guy relax because he's been staying still so long. His muscles are cramping. He's unsure how long he can remain absolutely still. And eventually, they decide they're going to have to break him out. So they pull the duvet off, having anesthetized what they think is a snake. Yeah. And they find there is no snake there. The doctor leaves in a bit of disgust. Darn it. Guinness summary, man. It's difficult. The doctor leaves in disgust. And we catch a brief glimpse of the snake under the pillows before it comes back, before the chap's partner comes back to mock him again, leaning on the bed and then getting bit. The original guy trapped by the snake says it's too late to call the doctor and leaves his partner to die. And Alfred comes back on to assure us that don't worry, justice was done and he was arrested and served time, because that's how he does this sort of thing. What do you reckon, guys? Did I catch most of it?
Yeah, you caught it. Caught the vast majority of it in enough time for a pint of Guinness to be served. That was a beautifully poured pint.
I think I'm just going to have to go into my local and bother them and say, look, can I be a massive weirdo and film you pouring a Guinness? Because the way that guy speeds up is just cheating, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, I thought that. I thought there was a little bit more time that you could have utilised there. Or maybe just go into the edit and slow it down. But either way, yeah. Got you thinking now. Just don't record anything. Make sure your mic's turned on.
Kick me while I'm down.
There was the added drama as well when he comes back with the serum and they give it to him and they're like, actually, I don't actually know if it's going to work or not. It's kind of like completely nullified that whole plot story. I really enjoyed this one. Again, this is the first one that I watched, and I thought the tension was really good. And as someone who has a bit of a smoker's cough, I could really understand that the urge that the guy was having to, just to clear his chest. But the not the side character, his business partner was hilarious. On the one hand, you've got this guy who's fearing for his life, and there's a really dramatic situation going on. There's high tension, high stakes, and then you've got the other guy who's like just fumbling around, making a bunch of noise, smoking in front of the guy who's already mentioned that he needs to cough. Calling the doctor, phoning up the operator. Oh, sorry, mate, wrong number. Sorry about that. It was quite funny. The only complaint I have with this one is that the motive of the business partner seemed a bit weird to me. Because he's quite happy to phone the doctor, he's quite happy to go and get the serum, he's quite happy to give this guy help, while also simultaneously at the time telling him that I might just leave you to die because I'm going to go and snatch your girl. I turned you into a drunkard so I could steal the business. Quite spiteful things he's saying. Almost like trying to egg him on to panic to the point where the snake reacts and bites him. But then he's also helping him out, and it threw me off a little bit. And I can appreciate if it's just bants, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like in that situation,
it's almost military grade bants. It's taking the piss rubbing your nose in it because you've stepped in it hard. But yeah, I love how Roald Dahl named his characters. Our poor unfortunate victim is called Harry Pope.
Right.
Wendell Corey's the business associate is Timber Woods, and the doctor is Dr. Ganderbay.
Yeah, I think this is a classic Roald Dahl. You know, you're having a bit of fun with the name there. Oh dear. The doctor was meant to be French, wasn't he?
Sacre bleu.
I got that vibe. I thought he was meant to be French. Yeah, as you say, that
like Ganderbay, I would say he's at least half caste.
maybe I don't think I've got a reference for that. Where's he? I probably have to be on the IMDb for it to find that out. But yeah, anyway, interesting setting. As you say, it's a little hard to really work out what's going on. You know, the dynamic is strong. You know, these stories, they work best when you have that strong tension. Characters who have nominally an aim in mind, but very different ways of going about it. We love that. Something that they disagree about is going to drive the story nicely. And one guy being absolutely terrified, and the other guy kind of thinking that he's just drunk, you know, just making it up, just imagined it, thinks he's pathetic, and decides to just kind of rib the guy. Just it's a nice dynamic, but at the same time, it is powered by this thing that we're not sure of, this key question that we aren't allowed to forget.
Yeah,
which
is there a snake?
Is there a snake? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate it's probably just the other guy having a bit of bants with Harry. I don't know though. I just felt like in those sort of circumstances, would you risk that, you know, nonchalant behavior in case, you know, he was telling the truth or was correct? Not that he was lying, but that, you know, that what he believed had happened had actually happened.
I sort of had the feeling,
and imagining it was mentioned.
Yeah, because at the beginning, because, you know, he doesn't believe him to begin with, and, you know, he's like, oh yeah, you're just drunk again, and he's like, no, seriously, this has actually happened, but then it's almost like he believes him, and then the story moves on to the next stage. Right, let's get the doctor. Oh, sorry, mate, I phoned 783. It should have been 713. Oh, it should have been 718. Sorry. Whoopsie daisy.
I mean, this is very
how's
classic.
How's your girlfriend doing? How's your girlfriend doing?
You're dropping a bit of Mark Wahlberg in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Say hello to your mother for me. Yeah, this is very classic Roald Dahl. Though I've been reading a lot of the weekend. I was reading his Tales of the Unexpected collected stories.
Yeah,
and the guy has an extremely sadistic streak. So it really doesn't surprise me that he'd do this. To be specific, that this sort of dynamic really reminded me of the story William and Mary, if people are familiar with his stories. But basically, someone really enjoying having someone kind of in the palm of their hand.
Yeah.
It does not surprise me that Roald Dahl would go this nasty.
No, I mean, I'm not. Again, I don't think that's the issue as such. I think for me, it was more. I think they could have, if they could have removed the doctor out of the equation, right? Because as we later find out, the serum may not even work. So there's still an element of risk there. I feel like this episode could have worked a hell of a lot better if, you know, because we know that there's high stakes going on. We know that this guy can't move because any sudden movement could cause the snake to bite him. this guy knows he's in the palm of his hands. It's pretty much he's pretty much done for. So now would be a great time to, you know, let him know what his true intentions are before the inevitable happens. And then they could, you know, when he goes to pull back the sheets to, you know, set off the snake, oh, it's not there. And then you just lead back into the actual ending.
I could see that. Yeah, the Doctor does seem like an extravagance, but possibly it is to fill the time.
But again, yeah, I mean, I suppose, but again, like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, John makes a good point here.
That's true.
Yeah, that extra witness thing. Yeah, I can see that. I can see, and there is, you know, what you said that about the serum does add an extra level of tension. Even if we go along with it, you've got tension of wondering, will the serum even work?
Yeah.
So it does add an extra question to it. But I wanted to talk to this in terms of kind of Hitchcock technique. Now, obviously, he's not the first person to do this or the only person to do this, but Hitchcock is someone we often associate with dramatic irony. So showing you, the audience, something that the characters don't know about. And here he kind of plays that straight and also inverts it. So the first half, we kind of got this dangled in front of us where there really is the question of whether the snake is there or not. And we spend most of the episode in that zone with that question sort of unescapable, the equivalent of a sort of dodgy bomb under the table, to use the example that Hitchcock himself used, where we're aware of it there, but we don't quite know if it's going to go off or not. And then later we finally get that shot of the snake and it's confirmed to us. The snake has been there all along. And then we're back on the full classic dramatic irony. Now we've had it confirmed, we can breathe a bit of a sigh of relief, even though our mind's been on that question the whole time. Now finally we know the answer, and our allegiance kind of switches. Well, I'm assuming our allegiance switches sort of fully to the guy who was originally the victim. Why can I not remember their names today? Harry Pope. Our allegiance is fully with Harry, and we're knowing then his friend is going to get the comeuppance when he's casually lying back on the bed. We now have this new information that he doesn't. And I'm thinking like that, there's classic Hitchcock storytelling right there.
Yeah, I did like that. I was rooting for the snake to have a good old nibble on the other dude's face.
Oh, he'd earned it by that point.
Oh, definitely. I mean, if my best mate was going to tell me that he was going to try and snatch my girl and turn me into a raging alcoholic to ruin my life, I'd be saying that it's too late to call the doctor.
Old school Bants is best Bants. What
exactly?
You know, they made him tougher back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just oh, well, in that case, I'll phone the doctor then.
Oh, I mean, it's so earned. But also, like, let's also bring in the old Chekhov's rifle here. We needed to see someone bit, right? We needed it. We need the tension release. Or some kind of other twist. You know. Just this episode needs to end with someone poisoned somehow.
Yeah. What if the serum was actually poison?
The serum is poison, just made to counteract another poison.
Yeah. But not counteracted.
Yep.
High fatal dose. Boom. Done. Either way, you're dying, mate.
Yeah. We needed the tension release, and I think it was the fact that we saw it after a sort of second form of dramatic irony, I think helped it land really well. Like, I am not saying it's a bad episode, but it was the least favorite for me.
Okay.
But maybe I'm being too soft on Revenge. I don't know. I'm feeling unsure about my ranking now.
See, I would rank this above Revenge, personally. Even though the dynamic between these two is slightly off kilt with, everything that he's telling him while this Harry dude's on the bed. For me, the tension and the question was enough to carry it through to its conclusion. And this was the first one I watched, so this was, for me, it was a great entry into the series.
It is a solid opening. I mean, I'm very glad these are 22-minute episodes. It does keep them disciplined, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Murgoot, was there anything you wanted to say on Poison?
The intro and the outro were hilarious. The anti-pickpocket.
Oh yeah.
We didn't even mention that. Oh no.
Oh mate, yes, please.
That
And then
was
at the end, it's no longer there, and just the assumption some poor pickpocket.
Yeah. Oh, it's been stolen.
so cheesy, so unbelievably cheesy. Yeah. Oh dear. Right. Yeah, I mean, God, now I'm rethinking. Now I'm stuck rethinking. Because this did really remind me of Rope. I don't know if you two got that as well, but that dynamic of so much emphasis on dramatic irony and the tension between the two characters, I thought it reminded me of that film as well.
Have we covered Rope?
We haven't. You and I are going to have a discussion about it at some point.
Yes. Is that the Leopold and Loeb?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. Oh, leaking out some sensitive information.
Yeah. Well, some trivia about Wendell Corey, Timber Woods. He was the president of the Academy of Arts and Pictures at the time, the Academy Awards. He was also on the board of the Screen Actors Guild at the time. Very highly rated character actor.
Excellent. Oh, you'd want to open strong for your season premiere, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was a good strong episode. You could tell. What was it? Season 4, wasn't it?
Yeah, season 4 premiere.
Yeah. See, I felt like knowing that Revenge was essentially the pilot. I feel like by the time they got to this episode in particular, I think a lot of the kinks were ironed out.
Yeah, it is better pacing. We should also point out that Timberwood's James Donald will be known to people from Quatermass and The Pit in 1967. Just thought I'd throw that out there as well. I'd half got it in my... I'd confused him with another Scottish actor, unfortunately, and I was just checking in on that, but alas.
Wasn't Sean Connery, was it?
It wasn't, no. It was one of the Doctor's assistants from the Patrick Troughton era, Jamie. That's how far back I'm going there.
Oh, is that a Doctor Who thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I got confused with. I'm noting we're coming up on the 2 hours, so we should probably round up at the moment, lest we face the wrath of Super Nanny. And I'll remind anyone who's a member, we have a Super Nanny emote that you can enjoy with late. I think late gets you Super Nanny. I had way too much fun making those. We got a James Furman emote as well now for everyone's favourite secretary of the BBFC. Although he changed it, actually. James Furman changed it from secretary of the board to director of the BBFC. Don't want to put out any misinformation there, folks. All right. We'll round up. It'll be nice to see a couple of late emojis in the chat. That just makes me very happy.
Yeah, we
And
were
I don't
late.
know if we want to do. Sorry,
I was saying, and we were late.
we were indeed late and somewhat suspicious. I think I've heard. Oh, where are they? Oh, that makes me so happy. On Furman's as well. That's delightful. All right. Well, to do some scoring, how about we do a ranking and then sort of an overall burger score?
I like that
Okay.
idea.
All right. Cool. Murgoot, would you like to go first?
Glass Eye was the best, followed by Poison, followed by Revenge.
Mm-hmm. And overall score?
Overall score, I would give an 8.5 burgers. Broken down, Revenge, I said 7 burgers with a bite of sweet and sour Stilton. Let's see. Glass Eye, I gave 10 burgers with a bit of cheese, of course, for the intro. And Poison, I gave 8 burgers and lots of cheese for the rattlesnake gag.
Oh, terrible. But fair. Okay. And TCG, how about yourself? What's the ranking?
Right. Okay. So in
And by the way,
third,
chat, give us your combined burger score, chat, if you managed to do your homework.
yes.
All right.
So in third was Revenge. In second was Poison, and first place, of course, was the Glass Eye. In terms of the scores, I would average it out to 10 out of 12 burgers. So, oh my gosh, Revenge, I gave that one an 8.
Mm-hmm.
Poison, I gave a 10. And I'm going to do it. The Glass Eye, 12.
Strong.
Loved
Strong.
it. It was amazing. I loved it.
I like it. I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to fight on that one. You know. Oh, hang on. Just a quick question there, Joe. No, we are always on at 8 p.m. on a Thursday, unless there's some kind of emergency or an unusual stream. So sometimes for certain guests, I'll have to do a Sunday show. But usually we're pretty reliably just Thursdays at 8 p.m. UK, unless you've just been messed around by British daylight saving hours.
Yeah, the gap in American
There we
and
go.
British switch over.
There we go. Apologies, Jay. That's got to be it. It's a daylight savings hours messing you around. Sorry about that. All right, and scores right. So for me, I think I'm only breaching consensus a tiny amount. For me, yeah, Glass Eye is number 1. Then I think I liked Revenge a little bit more. I liked Vera Miles' performance. It left me with a much more sort of sickening unease in the stomach, and I just like the calm detail of the way the husband palmed the wrench on the way to just go and bludgeon a man, and the way he does it off screen as well, which is obviously kind of a censorship thing, but it did just leave a chill in my stomach that I really appreciated. And you guys have warmed me up on Poison a bit. I think possibly I was a bit too harsh on it. It was the last one that I watched, and possibly being a little bit ill, I didn't take to it as well. But it wasn't bad. Overall score for me, it's a nice strong 9 burgers. I'm going to be coming back to this. These are short episodes. They've got a really unique vibe to them. There's no ketchup on them, but they're all served with a nice bit of cheddar, right? It's distinctly British cheese, but it's not runny. It doesn't overrun, okay? Yeah, see what I did there? And maybe there's a bit of a pickle in there as well, because so many characters get themselves in a pickle. Basically, it's just got a really nice vibe to it. It's very chill, and I will come back to it. I would like to binge it. I think I want to work like the Twilight Zone. I can see myself just sort of working through it and enjoying it on as very cozy viewing. So yeah, I think about a 9 for me, but the absolute standout is The Glass Eye. I think way ahead of its time, very clever twist, great performances, and a really good heart to it as well, which I think really helps it land. So yeah, strong. I realise I was just nattering away and I haven't got the scores in, so I will go through more of these scores. But yeah, I'd say that one is a winner for me. I'd never seen any of it before. I don't know if you had TCG.
No, I hadn't seen any of it. Like I say, Poison was my entry into this whole series.
We're seeing a lot of it. These are high scores. I think people have enjoyed this stuff. This is fantastic.
Yeah, this was a great recommendation. Was this something that was recommended to us, or was this something that you just had in the pipeline for a while now?
It's something I had in the pipeline for a while. I knew that if I were covering horror anthologies, I'd have to go into the TV realm, and I knew this was one of them. To be honest, it's kind of a case of what don't I cover, because there are so many, and when we get into the 80s ones, I think I've got them all there. When we get into the 80s ones, it's going to be very tight, basically. I think we'll have to do a lot of bonus episodes to make up for it, because there's lots of series and they cover lots of episodes, so that's going to be very difficult. But yeah, I always wanted to cover this, and I know we're also going to go to Tales of the Unexpected, which I gather you can also find quite easily on some creative places on the internet, including the ones where I believe all these episodes are stored. However, next week we are not going to Tales of the Unexpected. We are going to something different. I will be doing horror homework now, folks. Horror homework. And it's really nice to see the high scores for this. So horror homework, we're back to a movie. We're going for the original Tales from the Crypt movie. There's going to be Joan Collins. There's going to be a spooky Santa. And there's going to be some suspiciously pink blood. We're back into the film, but we're going to cover the Tales from the Crypt TV series eventually. But first, I thought we've got to see the classic film. So the horror homework for next week is Tales from the Crypt, the original movie. And I think we may be getting an additional member stream on about this. I've got to check my schedule, because things like, unfortunately, me just recording for 2 hours with no mic has sort of messed up my schedule a bit. Now, Marina, you've been really patient. I've noticed you asked about Pet Sematary. I was looking at doing it on Saturday. I'm just a bit hesitant about confirming it because I wanted that to be a watch along. So I tell you what, I am going to make a decision tomorrow about it, whether we do it Saturday or not. But I would be doubtful about it. I am definitely going to get Pet Sematary in this month, because I wanted to do it last month, but it got a bit too busy. So I'm definitely doing Pet Sematary this April, and I will announce it as soon as I can. So sorry to mess you around a bit. Illness and busyness have played a bit of havoc with me running things here. So I do appreciate patience here, and I'm hoping I can do a good job of the Pet Sematary watch along for you. But with that all done, I want to give a massive thanks to everyone in the chat for coming along and enjoying this. I have really loved really loved seeing you. You can tell I'm tired, can't you? Really loved seeing you respond so well to this. This from 1955 all the way through to, was 1958 the latest we went with this one? I think 1958 was the latest we went.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I just love seeing such a positive response to that. It's fantastic.
It did feel very ahead of its time. Like I say, with the I rated it the lowest, but Revenge kind of surprised me a little bit with the amount of flesh on display.
Yeah, Hitchcock pushed the line on that. He really did. I mean, think how saucy
Yeah, that as
Psycho
well.
was when
Yeah,
it started.
yeah. That, but no, you meant to talk about sauciness, like at the beginning when they're proper like copping off.
I know.
Just don't expect that level of
The sense of like, it's
raunchiness.
okay, they've got twin beds.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
assure you there's been no nookie.
They don't wake up together,
Oh dear. All right. Well, there we go. So that is a horror homework. Massive thanks to you, chat. I really enjoyed seeing the contributions. Massive thanks, Murgoot and TCG.
Thank you.
Pleasure as always.
Yeah, lovely. All right, and with that we are done, and I will sign off now. All right, folks. Thanks, y'all. Cheers.